All right, welcome in everyone. This is Spitting Fire. I'm Matt, and Bergie's right alongside me with that beautiful handlebar mustache. If you're not watching on YouTube, you listen on Spotify or whatnot. You can't see it, but man, I like that, Bergie.
Thank you. Thank you. I went with the mustache, did the handlebars for Halloween. I was Joe Exotic, like probably 90% of the country. And then I'm letting it roll through. It's mustache Movember, so I normally have the mustache, but I'm leaving the handlebars at least for a little bit now.
It is Mustache November, and it's November 3rd, Connor, November 3rd. So it's Election Tuesday. We're bringing a little special to you. We're going to do some NFL to start, and then get to see both of our electoral maps. And then we'll let you go because you got to watch CNN, right?
Oh, yeah. We got to get that going. Got the drinking games all up and ready to go. It's going to be a great night.
Yeah. It's our second show. Connor's drinking a little beer as we talk. We're going to have a sponsor next week. Pretty exciting. But we'll keep it on the low key, and we'll bring it to you next week. So let's get started with last night, Connor. I mean, with the Bucks and Giants, I don't know. To me, my big takeaway was Tom Brady. If he doesn't play decent, they could lose every game. And if he plays decent, they can win every game.
Yeah. So I think that's great. That's simple, but that's great. I think that the Bucks and the Giants, it's funny. The Giants are kind of the Bucks, but just like way worse. The Bucks have probably the best defense in the NFL this year. Their run defense is incredible. You cannot run on the Bucks defense. And then their offense, they just have so many weapons, especially now with AB coming. They have 3 of the top 8 receivers in the NFL on their team. They have a solid running back in Leonard Fournette. They have a good offensive line. And then, I think that it's, they have all those pieces. So, yeah, it's a matter of Brady playing well. But, I mean, my takeaway from that, and I think, we talked about this a little bit, but I think that the Giants are a little bit better than they seem. I think their offense is awful, but I think their defense is a little bit frisky. I think their defense is pretty solid. Watching them against the Rams, they were pretty good. They looked good last night at times. Daniel Jones, I don't know. I think he's probably, other than Kyler Murray, the best quarterback in that draft class, but that's not saying much. If I was the Giants, I'm looking to potentially draft another quarterback this year.
Yeah, I like the potential with Daniel Jones. It's the decision-making for me. You can't have those turnovers, especially with that roster. But it's so deceiving. Like when you really watch all the games on Sunday, you look at your Rams and Jared Goff. It's like the Rams can't have Jared Goff doing that either. So when Daniel Jones does it, it's like you're so much harder on him because he hasn't done anything yet. But so it's hard for me to be fair when I look at like young quarterbacks and like how quickly GMs want to move off them now.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think Daniel Jones has had a turnover in 20 out of the 21 games that he's played in. I think that's a horrible stat. I think he has really small hands, so he fumbles the ball all the time. And he's not even just turning the ball over, he's making horrible decisions. So like the interception that he threw at the end of the game that kind of lost them the game, that was just a bad play. I think he shouldn't have thrown that ball. He should have just taken a sack. Worst case, even throw the intentional grounding, right? I mean, that's better than having a turnover there, especially when you're beating a team that you should be better than, or that you should be getting beaten by. It helps in order to just take care of the ball. But Daniel Jones, I like like you're saying, I like the potential. He's got a good arm. He at times can look really good, and he can run the ball. So I don't know. But you also look at comparing him to other quarterbacks and what they're doing, especially this year's draft class. Justin Herbert looks awesome. Joe Burrow looks awesome. Tua, you still don't know what you're getting out of him, but he won his first game. So I think that's what I'd worry about with Daniel Jones is kind of what's happening with these other people.
Yeah, so for me, that Broncos game and that Dolphins-Rams game, those were both those losses, the loss of the Chargers and the loss of the Rams, was more about what they did wrong than what the other team did right.
Totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's, that was the most Chargers loss of all time. So, I think that they just need to – I honestly don't know what they need to do. I thought it was always Phillip Rivers, but I think it's just kind of the Chargers, and that the Chargers are just going to keep losing games like that. I saw a stat that said since 2015, they have 49 losses, the Chargers do. And of those 49 losses, 38 of those losses are one-score games. That's like the most absurd stat. How do you lose that many one-score games? It's crazy to me.
That's like the Falcons this year, but every year.
Seriously though, it's insane how that happens. So they somehow, I don't know if they need to like cast a spell or like burn everything, or I don't know what they need to do, but they need to get.
What are those things that like women, like, I don't want to say liberal women, I don't even, this is probably bad that I'm saying this, those things that they do where they like put, I don't even know, this is already like taking a turn for the worse, but the thing where they like burn stuff in their house, like incense.
Yeah, a little incense, that'd be nice.
No, it's not that. It's something else, Bergie. It's like basically like modern sorcery. I don't even know, but
a Wiccan.
A little bit.
They need to enlist the help of a Wiccan.
All right, I'll Google it. We'll come back to it. We'll let it go. But yeah, they need to do something.
Yeah, and so that, I mean, it's just going to keep happening with the Chargers. They need to figure that out. But Herbert looks awesome. Joe Burrow looks awesome. You know, I think there's some good quarterbacks, and especially this year's draft class. If I'm the Giants, I'm looking at myself sitting at, what are they, 1-6, and thinking, you know, you can get a guy. They're probably not going to get Trevor Lawrence. That's probably going to be the Jets. But I mean, maybe you could trade up to do that if the Jets want to keep Darnold. But you get Trevor Lawrence, you can get Justin Fields, you can get Trey Lance. I mean, there's some guys in this class that look pretty good. Whereas the class when they took Daniel Jones, I mean, nobody really was jumping off the page in that class until Kyler Murray decided he wanted to play football. I think they need to. I would think about taking another quarterback.
At some point, you have to jump off the roulette, though, right? Like the Bengals are off the roulette. The Dolphins, I'm hearing mixed things, but they're supposed to be off the roulette. People are saying that part of the reason that they're bringing in Tua so early is that, like, if he gets hurt or his career is not going to be what it's going to be, they can use that pick they got to take another quarterback or do something. That's a little too cynical for my taste, but I see both sides.
I get that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the Dolphins, it's hard because they're in a position that they could potentially make the playoffs this year. So I don't know that I would have gone against Fitzpatrick so quickly. I think, you know, the Dolphins are now sitting at 4-3, and I think are one game back of the Bills. So that, you know, that they have a team that can still do something. But I don't know about that. I also think that, you know, you want to get off that roulette. And I think that's where with a guy like Jared Goff, I'm looking at him saying, you know, is he ever going to be a top 5 quarterback? Probably not, right? He might be he's a very solid quarterback, but to know that I'm going to have a league average to above league average quarterback every season for the next 20 years, I'll take that every single time. Because I see these teams like the Bengals have been, like the Dolphins, like, you know, even like the Bears that can't find a good quarterback. I don't want to live in a world like that. I'm okay with just having a guy that's going to be pretty solid. And the comparison, I was talking to my uncle about this the other day. If you compared Jared Goff to say, I'm going to get 20 years of Matt Ryan, I'm happy with that. You know, and if you put it, because you saw Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan, he was awesome. He was an MVP. They went to the Super Bowl, and if they knew how to run the ball instead of throw it in that fourth quarter, they would have won a Super Bowl. So I think that if you can have Goff be just solid, I think you take that. And that's the problem with some of these quarterbacks is that they're going for the home run instead of taking a guy that they just know is going to be solid. And that's the problem with a guy like Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think it's such a fine line because you look at Matt Ryan, right? He went to the Super Bowl, but analytically, stats-wise, performance-wise, just eyeball test, you can back up that he is league average or above league average. My problem has been with like Nick Foles and with Jimmy Garoppolo now. I've let the go into the Super Bowl thing fool me, or playing well in the Super Bowl fool me with Nick Foles. Like I've let it just be something where I'm like, okay, this is a Jared Goff or this is a Matt Ryan, but like Nick Foles is not a Jared Goff and he's not one of those guys. So I think that it's difficult to really be able to discern between whether they are that's like starting quarterback for the next 20 years, or you're trying to force it and jump off the quarterback roulette too soon.
Yeah, and I think the differentiating factor between Matt Ryan and Jimmy G or Nick Foles, because I think that's a great point you brought up. I think the differentiating factor is that Matt Ryan won an MVP that year too. And his first like 7 years in his career, he went to the playoffs every year. Like he's had a lot of success and always put up good numbers, always looked really good. Whereas you look at a guy like Jimmy G or Nick Foles, like they were being carried by their defense. They were being carried by their offensive lines and running games. You know, they put up great games, and Nick Foles, you know, what he did in the Super Bowl and he won that can't be understated. But I think it's not, you know, apples to apples with a guy like Matt Ryan who has put up good numbers consistently throughout his career. Right.
Yeah. But me, I love to get on the hype train.
Totally. We love the hype train.
Just shouldn't have got on it for Jimmy G or Nick Foles. For me with the Bears, it was now it's a perpetual problem of trying to make a guy work, and they're not working, and you have a good roster. It's like the opposite of what those quarterback roulette teams have been through. Like, you've had a perpetually good roster like the Rams, but you haven't had that above average quarterback.
Totally. I think part of that, I don't think Matt Nagy's a good coach. That's my opinion. I don't think he's a good coach. So I think
then why do they have a good roster and play well sometimes?
I think they have a good defense. I think they have a really good defense. And something I read that was like 2 years ago when they were pretty good and they made the playoffs and they lost on that double doink. They apparently, like I said, the offense was pretty good. Mitch Trubisky looked solid. You know, they did a lot of stuff. I guess what happened was that they were running all these trick plays, all these weird formations, but now everybody's kind of caught on to that and it doesn't work anymore. So I think that might be kind of the issue with the Bears, is that Matt Nagy had all of these tricks up his sleeve, used them all, and can't adapt, right? And I think you look at a guy like Sean McVay, who's changed his philosophy every single year on how he's going to have to coach this team. Kyle Shanahan can always manufacture. We were talking about it last week. There's always a running back that's going to get you 100 yards on the Niners. And so I think that you need a coach like that, and Nagy's not. And so, you know, you can either have an awesome roster that can make up for a bad coach, or a great quarterback who can make up for a bad coach, or you need to have a great coach to make up for a subpar quarterback. And I don't think the Bears have either of those things.
Right. And you mentioned the Niners. I think for the Niners, after that loss to the Seahawks this week and just the stacking up of the injuries, this season's just not going to be it for them. 4-4 now. I mean, with all those injuries and
no, they are 4-4. Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, 4-4, and I just think that it reminds me of some of those other talented rosters you've seen, the Steelers, the last few years, where things just kind of fall apart, and you're 8-8, and you're like, this team's way too good for that.
Totally, yeah, no, I agree, and I think to me that's kind of what happened with the Rams last year, right? They ended up 9-7, a game out of the playoffs, but they had a ton of injuries on their offensive line. Gurley was never healthy. You know, they have much worse injuries, so I definitely don't want to say it's the same. The Niners have lost, you know, their number one tight end, who's probably the best tight end in football. You know, I probably would take him over anybody else, but, you know, they've lost some big pieces on that offensive line, defensive line. But, you know, that's what happens. That's football, right? And I think that's how you have to figure out to be competitive with dealing with injuries. You know, those are a fluke, right? And so I think that's the problem there. But you start to question, looking at a guy like Jimmy G, can he be healthy, right? And that's the issue, is that he's been hurt so much of his career. He was hurt with the Patriots. He got hurt his first year with the Niners, or I guess his first full season with the Niners. And then he's hurt again this year. And I know it's a lot of them are fluky injuries, but at the same point, like, if you keep having fluky injuries, at what point is it just this guy's going to get injured a lot?
And some bad throws. Bad throws.
I don't think he's a great quarterback anyways, but and that's, you know, what's going on there. So yeah. I got a question for you. Talking about the game last night, I saw somebody tweet out last night, do you think the NFC East has the 4 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL this year? I think they have 3 of the bottom 4. I don't know if I'd put Carson Wentz there, but right now, if you said who's going to start again this week, Ben DiNucci on the Cowboys, he's by far the worst quarterback in the league. Daniel Jones, and then whoever the Washington team wants to throw out there, those 3 guys are probably the bottom 3 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, who else is bad? I think Gardner Minshew is pretty bad.
Okay, but would you take any of those 3 guys over Gardner to win a game?
I'd take Daniel Jones over Gardner Minshew
to win next week, not for the next 5 years, not to project or anything.
Can I put Daniel Jones on Jacksonville?
Sure.
They have a better offense. Yeah, they have better pieces. Laviska Shenault Jr., that's a great name for a receiver, by the way. We're going to have to do a segment where we have best names.
I'm in.
Laviska's already broken through. There's so many good names of the first, like the draft this year. You got so many good names into the league this year. But no, I mean, yeah, I think there's a few quarterbacks who are worse. You don't think so?
I mean, those 3 guys are so bad. I don't know. Like, Daniel Jones loses. I guess the way I'd put it is, how many quarterbacks will lose you a game? Not necessarily even just neutral. I think Gardner Minshew is pretty neutral. Daniel Jones loses games because of
that's a good point. Gardner probably wouldn't have lost the Giants that game last night.
Right. And now I think that, you know, Daniel Jones definitely has a higher ceiling, but he definitely has a lower floor. So that's where I don't know. Like, I think those 3 guys are horrible. And then Carson Wentz, sometimes Carson Wentz looks awesome, but he is not a good quarterback. I don't think he's good at all.
There were no words for that game, Berg. I mean, I tuned in a little bit, and Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels, the most professional announcers, they were just laughing.
You can't do anything else.
They're
That's
laughing.
what you can do in that situation.
There's like a line drive field goal, and they're just laughing. They're laughing. I mean, like, yeah, Carson Wentz, he'd take these huge sacks. That was the only thing I took away from it. He would just get nailed, and like there was no reaction. I mean, fumble, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's horrible. So one thing that I feel like we have to address is the hype train that everybody's on right now. How many receivers in the NFL would you take over DK Metcalf right now?
Are we doing the same thing like for next week, or are we doing for a career?
Let's say the next 3 years.
3 years.
I don't think I would take any. DK might be a top 3 or 5 receiver right now. Julio's good, but I wouldn't put him in there. I mean,
Hopkins is more injury prone.
Hopkins might be the only person I would take though over.
Right.
I'm trying to think. I mean, Tyreek Hill works, but I don't know that I'd put him. He has to. I feel like he's perfect with.
I think I would take DK over everyone because he's the least injury prone too.
Yeah, and he's huge.
He's massive.
Literally 6'3", 240 or something. He's ripped. He runs a 4.3 40. I mean, he is incredible. He looks like a guy like Randy Moss or a guy like the other one I heard someone comparing him to. Just the way it's like watching him was Michael Vick. Saying that it feels like he's jogging and moving faster than everybody else out there.
Yeah, on the one where he barely stayed on the sideline this last week. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like he was just cruising, and he was like blowing by NFL defenders, and he was just cruising.
Right. I think that he's the real next Megatron, and they crowned over in Pittsburgh, who's the receiver, the new guy.
Claypool.
They call him Mapletron. And I thought it was disrespectful just because he had that 1-4 TD game. Right. And it's like, no, DK is probably that, not Claypool. Not yet.
And I mean, I get what they're saying. Claypool is huge. He's fast. He's smooth. He's got good hands. I mean, he's got a lot of those things. But you got to do a little bit something more than have one big game than to say.
Right. And DK's done that.
Every week.
DK's done that.
Yeah.
Well, he had a big week against Arizona just because he had the chase back on Budda Baker. Otherwise, that was not a big week. You put up 3 points in fantasy, but
that's fair. But
that's going to happen. I mean, it's crazy. In Seattle, you have like him and Tyler Lockett alternating for 30-point weeks every other week. And my takeaway with Seattle is I'm a lot higher on them now. And going to Buffalo this week is going to be a telltale because I don't know what the weather's going to be like out there. That's across the country. Buffalo's a legit team. So we'll get to see a lot from whether Buffalo's legit or Seattle's legit. But my takeaway was that David Moore is their third. They're good. Like I was a little worried when AB like committed to the Bucks. I was like, that would have been a great pickup for Seattle. They're trying to make the push and they don't have a very good defense. But there's something to be said in the NFL, just like there is in soccer, for chemistry and momentum. And I feel like Seattle, despite like how bad everyone talks about how bad their defense is, they've got good momentum and they've got good team chemistry behind them. And some of that hype can carry you a little bit. Or maybe the Niners are just worse and more injured than we thought they were. I really don't know what to think of the Niners, but
I have no idea what to think about the Niners, but I do agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think the Seahawks defense is actually going to come around. Jamal Adams is going to come back. They just traded for Carlos Dunlap, who's going to help with their pass rush. I mean, I think they're going to be better than they have been even, which is terrifying to think about because Russell Wilson right now, you know, he has been for the past few years even. He is the scariest person with the ball in his hands. I'm not saying he's the best player, right? Like I think Mahomes is still probably the best player in the NFL. But if you told me there's 4 minutes left in the game and you need to drive 85 yards to score a touchdown to win the game, the scariest person on the field that you could possibly have is Russell Wilson. And I think the crazy thing that the Seahawks have too is because they have two great receivers, and I will say great receivers on how they play in that system and with Russell Wilson, you have a big outside receiver and then you have a slot guy. So how many teams have an elite big quarterback and then an elite slot receiver as well? Not many. So that's where they're going to keep alternating, right? Is because, hey, this week Lockett's got the better matchup. He's going to go off. Oh, next week DK's got the better matchup. He's going off. So it'll be interesting to see if a team can stop them. I'm biased, but I think the Rams actually have the pieces to stop that. But we'll see what can happen. I mean, the Rams half the time look like the best team in the league, and then half the time look awful. So I don't know what to say about them right now.
Right. I think the NFC West is definitely the strongest division in the NFC, but let's move over to the AFC, Steelers, Ravens. We haven't talked about it for like half the show now. It's kind of crazy. I thought that was the game of the week. The first half was fantastic. Like the turnovers back and forth, and you felt like the turnovers that both teams got were like they had to fight for those turnovers. It wasn't like the turnovers that Jared Goff made or Garoppolo where they kind of handed them the turnovers. Just back and forth turnovers in the first half. You got Tony Romo announcing the game. So you got the hype. Do you like Tony Romo?
I do. I know you love Tony Romo more than me, but I do like Tony Romo.
I love it because you can sit down someone from like Africa and they'll be like, oh, I should be excited to watch football right now. Like he's just overflowing with enthusiasm. So, and that's like the opposite of Jim Nantz. So I need some more of that in my CBS broadcast.
I totally agree. And it's definitely better than what Phil Simms was. So I think, Romo, I think is the best play-by-play guy right now. I like Collinsworth too, or not play-by-play, sorry, color guy. I like Collinsworth too, but, those are kind of the two best guys.
Yeah, I think
I like Romo. Oh, God.
NBC is the gold standard production, I think.
Yeah, and then just production value and like just watching a game is a more aesthetic appearance for them. I think it helps them being at night. I think being dark, you can make it look a little bit nicer. But
right.
I think definitely I agree with that. I'm starting to think Lamar Jackson isn't that good.
I'm worried. So
games.
Yeah, so the big thing for me was the third quarter interception when he got high pointed. Did you see what he did on the bench?
I don't know.
He pulled like a Phillip Rivers and was like laughing and like, who cares? It was his third turnover of the game. And it was like that cocky Phillip Rivers thing. And I'm like, oh, you're way more like a Phillip Rivers than Russell Wilson. This is not serious. I don't know if he's serious. I was like worried because I'm like, I don't want to be that guy who's just thinking that. But that was the turning point for me. I'm like, oh, this is not serious. This is Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, for a team that, has lost 2 straight years in the playoffs, that hasn't come back from a game 10-0 or down 10 points, they don't seem like a very tough team. And I don't know if that's the right word to use, but this keeps happening. And you see now their leader laughing, like you're saying, laughing on the bench. I don't know that this is the team that can really grind it out and win big games. And so until they do that, I'm going to have questions for them all along. Like, I wouldn't be scared of them in the playoffs, I guess is the way I would put it.
And the crazy stat I saw when he was starting to turn on the turnovers, they brought it up that Roethlisberger's never received an MVP vote. Not one.
That's crazy.
And that's where the winning comes in. Like, I don't know. I think that the Ravens can still be a team that can have a Super Bowl there, one Super Bowl type thing, or make a run. But yeah, I don't know if toughness is the word, but I think it's maybe resilience mixed with some attitude. It just feels like there's some weird, like, you're so talented. They should have destroyed the Steelers. They had like 250 rushing yards. They should have demolished them. But the turnovers and just everything kind of going Pittsburgh's way, I thought they didn't handle it well. Or like a team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl team, they handled it super weird. Like, oh, whatever, like this is ridiculous. We'll just win anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the way I think about is like, remember when the Chiefs and Texans played last year in the playoffs and the Texans were up 24-0 in the first quarter?
Yep.
Do you think the Ravens have any shot of coming back and winning that game? I think the game, you might as well pack it up and go home at that point. Chiefs came back and were winning at halftime. Like, that's what I look at, is that you got a team that's resilient in the Chiefs that can come back because you have this explosive offense, you have all of that. The Ravens are awesome, and they have an awesome defense, and their offense can be fun, but I don't know that they have the kind of team that can go down 24 points. And again, 24 points is exaggerated because almost no team can do that. But go be down 14, 17 points in a playoff game and grind and chip your way back. I don't know that they're a team that can do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Another team I'm concerned about with that is the Packers, who let Dalvin Cook run all over them. And people were saying, is the toughness an issue for the Packers after the game? Was it against they're playing the Niners this week. Who was it that kind of beat up on them, ran all over them earlier this year?
They lost. Oh, the Bucs did. The Bucs beat them. So I don't remember who else ran all over them, but they beat the Bucs.
Right. So my concern with the Packers is that toughness, and I think it's warranted now after the game against the Vikings, the physicality.
Yeah, I mean, that was their issue last year, right? I was at the NFC Championship game last year against the Niners, and they got obliterated, like got manhandled the entire game. They ran for like 400 yards or something. It was stupid what happened in that game. And that's just, I don't, like you said, I don't know if it's lack of toughness, but that's kind of what it's starting to seem like is these teams that just want to say, let's go, that like the Packers can't do that like the other teams can. So
Yeah.
I definitely would be concerned if I was a big Packer fan.
Yeah, so they got blown up by the Bucks. That's the game I'm thinking about. The difference is this time I noticed for the Packers is they fought back a lot more on offense. So I thought it was a better loss than the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks game was an awful loss.
Yeah, but the Bucks are a better team. The Vikings aren't good. That's the hard part. The Vikings kind of suck. So it's like, well, yeah. Would you rather a good loss to a bad team or a bad loss to a good team? I don't know what I don't know what I'd rather prefer.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. I think the loss to the Vikings was better. I mean, if you just get Aaron Rodgers just stopped playing, it felt like in the Bucks game. So
I agree.
I don't know. Patriots, Bills, a couple things there that stood out to me. Zach Moss, he can run. Okay, J.K. Dobbins on the Ravens, he can run. There's so much good young talent in the league this year. Cam Newton, I thought he played well except for the fumble. It's a big except. Damian Harris, he can play too. I don't know. I think that one thing that stood out to me in this game that was crazy to me, Berg, is that I've noticed this year, and I've noticed this after the U.S. Open when Djokovic whacked the ball and hit the official, right, and got kicked out of the tournament. Guys are chucking because it's COVID and there's like no one there. They are chucking footballs. They're not spiking them. They're chucking them like at the wall, but they're not looking. Like I saw Josh Allen on one. He just threw it as hard as he could. He's gonna hit someone. And they're going to get kicked out of the game if they like. Is someone in the NFL over under going to hit an official before the end of your by throwing the football after a TD
And get kicked out of the game?
Yeah, pull a Djokovic.
I don't think so. That'd be awesome, but I doubt it.
I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to hit someone. I mean, the NFL is a little bit different. If you nail like a cameraman with a football, you don't get in trouble, right? You may just get a penalty.
So that's the thing. They'll definitely hit the cameraman. But if you just think about the way the refs are aligned on the field, they're never going to get hit by a guy a touchdown. But I do agree with you. They're going to nail like some little lines, like I don't even know. Yeah, cameraman in the face, and that's going to be bad.
It's going to be bad because they're throwing these things hard. I don't know if they did this every year. It seems to me that this is like more of a thing this year, but I don't know.
Yep. Do we want to take a pivot to tonight's events?
Tonight's events, are there any games that we need to talk about still? I mean, we probably should talk. We should just pivot real quick back to the NFL and talk Colts, Lions, Titans, Bengals. Those are probably musts. Raiders, Browns, I'll say. That's all I say. Done. Colts, Lions.
That's fine. Yeah.
Colts, Lions. I think that the thing is the Colts beat up on the Lions. I thought this was going to be a closer game. And to me, the big thing now is next week, Colts, Ravens is a huge game. I think they're both 5-2. You talk about how good that Colts defense is, and now we get to see if what's going to be more true. Well, like, are the Ravens resilient? Are they a legit, franchise team with Lamar? Is he that resilient franchise quarterback who's going to, win by 2 touchdowns against the Colts and bounce back? Or is the Colts roster going to outplay that? And I mean, if the Ravens lose next week, that's a huge, huge problem for them.
Yeah, totally. I'd pick the Ravens. I think the Colts defense is awesome. I think that their offense is not, and I think Phillip Rivers is not great this year. So I would take the Ravens defense to be the game changer in that game. I could see them getting, a pick 6 or a fumble return for a touchdown or something like that, and that being the difference maker. But I do think the Colts defense is awesome, especially their run defense, which will be huge playing against a Ravens team that likes to run the ball. I would take the Ravens, though, ultimately in that game.
Yeah, and then Titans, Bengals, I thought that was just one of those games for the Titans. It's one of those games against the Bengals, but the thing is, I think the Bengals, there's so many teams that outside of the NFC East, there's so many teams that are bad record-wise that aren't as bad anymore. Like we're talking about the Giants roster, the Bengals roster. Joe Burrow can move around. He can do things. And the Titans, I thought it was just one of those games where same thing with the Rams. Like everything just kind of went wrong. Like with the Rams, you're not going to get your quarterback throwing 2 interceptions and having 2 fumbles every game. Like he's just not going to do that. So I thought it was one of those games for the Titans, not an overreaction there.
I think I agree, but I also think that the problem for the Titans is now what really manifested in that last game. So I don't know if you know, Joe Burrow, by kind of like a long distance, has been the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, and they didn't get one sack on him. The Titans didn't. So I think that's going to be the concerning thing for the Titans moving forward is can they generate pressure? But I agree with you. I don't think that game, says everything, but it will. Their season's going to come down to can they generate pressure?
Right. Absolutely. All right. Anything else there? I mean, I did want to get one quick take from you before we go to this election special. It's going to be rapid fire. NBA season start before Christmas.
Stupidest thing ever. LeBron's not going to play for like 2 months. I think it's dumb. But the league's going to lose $1 billion if they don't. So I don't know. I mean, I get the financial implications of it, but LeBron's not going to play for 2 months. And if LeBron doesn't do something, the NBA doesn't do something. So.
Yeah, I think what the NBA is missing in negotiating with players, and they don't have the leverage the NFL does because the players have such more longevity in their careers. So they can take a hit for a year and then they can be back up to like pulling in, 5-10 million for 6 more years. It's not the end of the world. Where in the NFL, like you have 1-year careers.
Yeah. And I think the big thing with that too is guaranteed contracts, right? In the NFL, you're a running back who barely made the roster. You're going to make your $15,000 a week. Whereas in the NFL or in the NBA, your minimum deal is still like, $800,000. So, if you can just get to the season, you'll make your money eventually. So I don't think they have the same leverage. And again, it all comes down to LeBron, and he doesn't want to do that. So I don't know. I don't think anything's I think they might try to do it, but I think it'll be pointless basketball though. Yeah.
All right. It's Tuesday, Connor. You ready for this? We're going to both put up our election maps.
Oh, I'm stressed.
You going to start or am I going to start?
You can start.
All right. I'll start. Your map's way more interesting than mine, but
I think yours is actually crazier than mine.
So you've got like 400 to 100 for Biden. I've got 278. Yeah. You can see it now. 278 for those listening for Trump, 260 for Biden. I've got Florida to Trump. Okay. We were talking offline before this. I think what is it right now? It's like 1 o'clock, right? 1 o'clock Pacific right now. So in like 4 or 5 hours, we'll probably know who wins Florida. I think Trump's already locked up Florida. So I think it's a legit race. I've got Trump winning Florida. I've got one of my big upsets, Biden winning North Carolina. I did this last week. I'd take that back. Give Trump North Carolina too. I gave Trump New Hampshire. I told you that's probably reckless. I'd take that back. I've got Wisconsin for Trump. And I've got Michigan and Minnesota for Biden. The whole like meme on the left that I'm seeing on Twitter of Texas for Biden and this stuff, I don't take that seriously. I don't take it seriously at all. I think, Connor, you had like a political consultant help you with your maps. You have to tell me why that's relevant, but I don't even take that seriously. I've got Arizona for Trump. That could totally be wrong. That's a nail biter. And I think Michigan could go to Trump, and I have that for Biden right now. So, and then Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is for Trump, but I have no idea. That could go to the Supreme Court. Pennsylvania is probably going to decide the election. And then the weird thing is Ohio, the last like 20 years has been a swing state. And now I think it's not. I think Trump's going to win it by 3 points. So, I mean, my map's not as crazy. You think my map's crazy though, Connor? What do you want to ask me about?
I guess what I would say, my comment on this is, I think yours is as ambitious as mine is. I think that it's probably going to land somewhere in the middle of ours. That I think that what you're showing is absolute best case scenario for Trump.
So you think those,
again, like there's a couple small ones like North Carolina, I think could flip, but I don't think it gets much more aggressive than this in favor of Trump. If it's the most perfect situation possible, it might come out looking like this.
Right. Yeah. The Republicans have a lot less upside than the Democrats do.
Right. And so that's where I think the realistic situation is somewhere in the middle of this and what mine is. That would be my comment on this. I think the thing is, you look at everything like people are saying and the people who actually know what's going on, because I don't really know what's happening enough here. But like Nate Silver, a guy like Nate Silver, especially who's more incentivized than anyone to get this right because he got the last election wrong.
Yeah. Did you see his tweet this morning?
I don't know which one, but I've been following all this.
He's already freaking on Florida, but keep going.
No, he said we don't know anything. He literally said it.
He said he has to go play video games or go work out or something.
Yeah, because, did you finish the rest of the thread? He was
absolutely not. I saw the one tweet that would get retweeted by all my right-wing people I follow on Twitter.
The whole thread.
You know
is
the
him
problem
just
in our
saying-
society, Berg. I got the one tweet in the thread that would favor my side.
No, the tweet was just saying that there's polls coming out from every side saying it's so hardcore Biden, and then there's a different poll that comes out, it's hardcore Trump. And he's like, you can find a poll that says whatever you want it to say. So that's what he was saying on that is, what's the point of jumping into this rabbit hole when it's not going to lead me anywhere, because literally we don't know anything. And I think all of it is summed up by his earlier tweet than that basically says we're not going to know anything until at least 4 p.m. Pacific time when votes start getting counted on the East Coast. So up until then, it doesn't matter what early reports or early polls or any of those things mean.
All right, bring up your map, Berg. Bring up your map.
All right, hold on. Here we go. Here we go. This is mine. Do I need to make this bigger or is this good?
That's fine.
So I'm basically having the opposite. I have best case for Biden. I think some of these are a little.
Hold on, just say the number for people listening. 426 Biden.
Yeah, and I think it could go even harder. But yeah,
112 Trump.
Biden to 112 Trump. I think that Biden winning Texas and Arizona is not as crazy as it sounds. The two crazy ones that I would potentially take back that I'm not super happy about in this situation are Iowa and South Carolina. I think Iowa and South Carolina, so that's another 15 votes. So I'll give you 411 to 127. That would be my guess as of right now. But again, this is idealistic from my side, but I think it's equally realistic as the map that you were showing.
Tell us about your consultant who helped you fill this out.
Yeah, well, I had to walk through these because I don't know enough about each individual state. And so I wanted to talk through and said, okay, what do I think? What are my pros and cons of each of these? And so I have my.
And what did your consultant tell you about Texas? This is like.
I think Texas has continually started to push towards Democrat. And I think that Trump has now alienated so much of the country because he's turned it into rural versus urban. And I think there's been a huge take of urbanization in Texas, especially. I mean, the 5 largest counties in Texas are probably going to go Trump. So I think that's the craziest part here is that there is a high possibility, not probability, high possibility of Texas going going Biden in this election.
Okay, so this isn't what you think's going to happen. This is you just wanted to put up the giant blue wave on the screen for everyone to see.
Well, I think I think this is a very possible outcome, and I think it's as possible as yours.
Okay, but what do you think's going to happen?
I think
it's going to be in between.
A little closer than this. Yeah, I think it'll be a little closer than this, but I think it will be Biden in a landslide.
But you're not going to be sweating like 4 years ago.
I mean, I'm still going to be sweating because I wasn't sweating 4 years ago. And so that's why I'm going to be sweating this time, was because I didn't think I had to sweat 4 years ago. So, no, I'm stressed. Let me get this very clear. I am very stressed, but this is what I think has a high possibility of happening.
Fair enough. All right, everyone. I appreciate you all listening. This is Spitting Fire. We're just getting going. Episode 2. We'll be back Thursday for our NFL predictions and where we were right and where we were wrong on the election. One of us is going to be very wrong.
See you guys.
Later.